and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh my God, how is that even possible that a computer could do that?
I
And
remember we were just happy to have one computer.
oh, look at this. Okay, so
Hold on, Dwayne. Keep going. You've got this part of the video. You've got the live unedited edition, Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night. It is May 3rd. Happy May Day a couple days ago. Anyways, we missed it. We just weren't broadcasting on that day. To you, Uyghur's dropping out. He'll be back here in just a second. I've got this part of the video. It means you've got the recorded, well, the live edition of it. We usually cut this part out, and we'll be going live here in a few minutes. It's okay. Hang tight. Dwayne's over there. Hold on. Dwayne, I'm going to go full screen on you. Keep playing.
oh, you want me to keep playing?
Yeah, just keep playing. We're going full screen. Dwayne's got, guess what we're talking about tonight? We don't talk a lot about gaming on Home Gadget Geeks. It's coming tonight. So,
all right,
some pretty good stuff. Peter says that Spreaker sounds good. I don't even remember clicking it, so that's kind of scary. But thank you, Peter, out there. If you want to catch a recorded version every week or join us or subscribe or all those kinds of things, you can head over to theaverageguy.tv, get signed up. We do this every Thursday, whether we like it or not. We are did I say whether we like it or not?
Yeah.
Mike, what do you, I guess that's what it meant. Mike, what's the beer on tap for you tonight?
Beer on tap is a cross strain for me. It's a cross strain Fairy Nectar Indian Pale Ale. So it's that same brand I had talked about with the hop, not the hop Luya. It has
sweet?
the super juice.
A sweeter one, sweet and bitter. How's that work? Give us a rundown. This is a local Nebraska, by the way, just down the street from us.
It's not sweet. Pretty much, it's one of the better India Pale Ales I've had. You know, a lot of Indian Pale Ales are very bitter, and that's usually the attractiveness of them. Right. But this one is it's tamed down a little bit, which I like.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I don't think it would be one of your favorites, though. Based on what you've told me what you like, I don't know if it would be one of your favorites.
Yeah, I'm not a big bitter guy.
But you would love that super juice, right?
Yeah, I need to give it a try. I've been getting the Hellas. They have a Hellas. What's the name? It's two names. I can't remember. I already put it in the recycle.
So it's left, right, up, down.
Dwayne's trying to figure that out. I've gone to the orange shandy. That's become a springtime favorite. Dwayne, no. what do you got there, Dwayne?
I have decided to go with Coney Island hard root beer. Nice. The best hard root beer in the world.
And I asked him if it was better than the Not Your Grandfather's root beer, and he said yes, definitely.
Coney Island? Is that what you said?
Yes. Coney Island Brewing Company.
Nice.
It basically tastes like a good version of the Not Your Father's.
Yeah, I like the Not Your Father's, so that's saying something, because I really like that stuff.
It's because you haven't had Coney Island yet.
Yeah, it's probably true. I don't think we sell that here.
I wonder if we can get it at Hy-Vee.
That's what I was wondering.
And don't forget, guys, that it's a no-fly zone.
We're not talking about the Winnipeg Jets tonight. It's all Nashville.
Yes, it's all catfish on the ice.
Save it, Dwayne. We'll save it. We're gonna talk a little bit about NHL and some technology. So hang tight.
Hey, do you notice in the background here what that is? Do you know this game?
A door.
The door.
This game.
Oh,
on the background.
Yeah, Super Mario.
That's the original. Hey, by the way, do you want me to put Super Mario 1, 2, or 3?
Which one is that?
This is Super Mario 1.
Okay.
Oh, what's funny is
one's a classic.
If you want to see something crazy, I can fire up an Atari 2600 game, and it looks like blocks. It's so awful. Like even Pac-Man on it, you don't remember how bad it was.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Okay,
Jim,
so
can you send me a link to the notes? Somehow I can't find it.
No, they're Dwayne's. So hold on. Let's see if I can.
He's dying to find the notes because he's trying to go ahead and build one while we're here.
That's exactly why I asked. Okay, I'm gonna get this going.
Let's see. How do I share this right
got that
here?
pie sitting around doing nothing.
What's your email? And that's so you know, Mike Uyghur. Hold on, right there. Boom. Let's see. Did that work?
Man, I need to get the TV closer.
You're actually it says you can edit this. Go to the OneDrive. I have a Home Gadget Geeks. It says Average Guy Tech Podcasts OneNote that I've shared with you. See if we can find it. Yeah, it's a OneNote doc. Dwayne will only do show notes inside of OneNote. So I sent him a Google Doc link and he laughs at me.
What?
Go away,
What
you
is that?
Google boy.
What is that crap? You're already still
Exactly.
using the deprecated Hangout thing. I
Hey, it
mean,
works great.
how many? Yeah, but they just once they get something working good, they just cut it.
No,
They just shut it down.
No, I think they're going to hold on to this for a while.
There we go. I got it.
You're in 54.
They just announced a new chat platform this week.
What's their new one?
Yeah, but this one integrates with.
It's called
YouTube.
Chat. The new one's called Chat. They actually shut down, or they're deprecating. What is that one they had? Arlo or
Oh yeah,
Halo?
yeah, Arlo, I think is what it was.
A-hole or something. I don't know.
Yikes! Dwayne is in the house.
Yes.
Thank you.
Spreaker. What's a Spreaker?
A Spreaker is our audio only service.
Wow, you have services coming out your
I
Spreaker.
do out my Arlo.
Yeah. I have Arlo cameras.
Do you?
Just not in this room.
All right, let's. Michael, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I love it how Hannah calls you Michael.
Michael.
Sometimes.
Michael. Good. I'm in trouble.
Michael.
Michael.
She says, Michael. Like, oh God, Hannah, don't hurt me.
Yeah. Run.
Don't hurt me, Hannah.
Hold on, I need to cough again.
Yeah.
There you go.
Don't
Yeah,
hurt me, Hannah. I didn't do it. I didn't mean it. Okay, let's do this thing. Anybody, you guys alive in the chat room? I see Ken. I see Peter. I see Jim, the other Jim, and Mike Uyghur, and I see Dwayne. Peter and other Jim, you guys, Ken, you guys alive out there? Just kind of checking in. I haven't heard from you in a while out there. All right, let's do this thing. Let's get. All right, Peter says, "Yep." He's hanging out. All right, here we go. Let's do this thing. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 354, recorded on May 3rd, 2018. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska. Mike, a severe weather 3 days in a row. It's been a while since I've seen like severe weather threats 3 days in a row. Like, nope,
Yeah,
Tuesday and a little bit Wednesday and a little bit Thursday. None of it really turned out to be severe, right? It was a little rain, make the grass. Keeps the
but
dust,
Kansas, just south of us, got hammered with a bunch of severe weather.
Yeah.
I think they were just south of us, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas area got hammered.
It had been super dusty here, so I was kind of glad that we got a little rain. We've had some fires here too. It had gotten pretty dry, so the rain was good. Of course, it's good if you check the show notes. You're gonna really want to check them. I say that every time, but you're gonna really want to check them this week because Dwayne wrote them. And Dwayne, they're going to be pretty good, right? I mean, they got some serious links. We're going to talk about some builds and some stuff, right? That is going to be awesome, right, Dwayne?
Oh yeah.
All right. By the way,
always,
welcome back, Dwayne. Good to have you back.
you just like having me back because I do show notes.
You do really good.
It is one of the benefits.
Yes, you do. You're like, here's what I'm going to talk about, and that's always awesome. So I appreciate you doing that. Hey, we'll remind you, download the Home Gadget Geeks app if you are going to listen literally anywhere, but on the road, it's the best thing. HomeGadgetGeeks.com, iPhone, Android, available for you. You can download that absolutely free. We thank LastPass for their sponsorship of that app. Don't forget, you can subscribe, rate, and review if you're an Apple Podcasts. You can actually do that right from your phone, by the way. If you have an iPhone, just go in there, rate, review, subscribe. Give us 5 stars, or if you're going to give us less than that, I don't know if I'm that interested. But 5 stars, give us a review. We'd love to have you do that. You can also subscribe on YouTube as well. Notification, like if you subscribe to our live channel, like what we're doing right now, you'll get notified when we go live. If you subscribe to the recorded channel, same thing. Every time I post, you'll get notified. A great way to kind of keep up with us. And then don't forget, give us follow us on Spreaker. Same kind of deal. That way you know when we are going live. Big thanks to Erin Lawrence last week. Erin rocked it. Mike, Woo! That girl she just brings the mojo, right? I mean,
she does.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was
that 2 weeks ago, or was that last week?
I was last week, but she's so good. We thought she was
2 weeks in a row. I have already had one beer. This could get interesting. Dwayne, you're going to have to really carry us here. Well, I had in my notes, big thanks to Erin, but Mike, last week's show was awesome. Thanks. It was so memorable.
Oh yeah, I'm not. I don't compare to her, but it was a fun catching up with you and talking news.
Well, no, but she does a great job, and of course, I'm just reading my notes. We will remind you. Actually, we're going to hold Dwayne over for some crypto conversation at the end. We probably won't do much of a post show because we're going to talk a bunch of crypto with Dwayne at the end. So stay around. Stay till the end. If you want to just skip to the end, if you want the crypto, you could do that as well. But there'll be a lot of great stuff in here. So you want to hang out and get it done. Dwayne Robinson is with us again. Dwayne, we already welcomed you, but welcome back. What are you wearing, dude? Seriously, what is that?
Come on, go Preds. I don't know why I'm on this and not watching that game.
There you go. Yeah, so
it's how much I love you.
It's NHL season. You got a no-fly zone. What does that mean? Why a no-fly zone? I don't understand.
It's the Winnipeg Jets no-fly zone.
Oh,
this is my shirt from when we won in Nashville the other night. And don't worry, we even have catfish to throw on the ice.
Boom.
So it's on.
You've got it all. You're a diehard fan. You're not just a little bit fan. You're a big fan.
Dwayne doesn't do anything halfway. That's what I've learned about Dwayne. There's nothing he does halfway. You're in or you're out. Lightning hot, ice cold, one of the two. He's just all in. Dwayne, when you went, because you went to a couple of the playoff games, right, with the NHL. How's the tech at those things? Because it seems like, I mean, you can get like there's apps and it'll tells you how far the beer is away, right? I mean, is it that sophisticated?
Yeah, it's pretty cool now. And what's funny is that Nashville has been known to be the #1 professional sports franchise for the Predators, and it has a lot to do with what they do. So, an example is the last game I went to. Carrie Underwood sung the national anthem, followed by Chris Isaacs for the first period concert, followed by the second period concert, which was Phil Vassar. Jody Messina did the one in the middle, did both of them in the game in the first round, and Brad Paisley sang the national anthem for us. So because of where we are, and then what happens when they do a playoff game, normal games, they don't do this. But during the playoffs, they have now made it where they lower a 360-degree screen that goes all the way around that's see-through. And they do live, like this video that rotates and this pre-show thing that's crazy. Wow. And I don't even know how they do a projection like that, but they do it. And it's the size of the entire rink from the top of the ceiling all the way down. And it's just crazy. And I can tell you, I know Winnipeg is really loud, but I have to tell you, Nashville is insanely loud whenever you go into the stadium. It's crazy. But like I said, I got to see the double overtime win in the 5th period the other night, and I was down. There is a trick here. I'm going to give away a little NHL tip of the day for you. If you ever want to go to an NHL game, or especially a game that is like a playoff game, you can actually subscribe now in Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster will, at least they will do this verified fan, and they reserve tickets for the fans day of. They will text you. You can buy the cheapest tickets that they offer, and some of them are $15.
Oh, wow.
So they only do 100 tickets a day for that. But you can also buy any of the tickets at face value, so you don't have to deal with that resell, upsell crap. And then if you get the NHL app on your phone, pick the team that's your favorite team, and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a thing called same-day upgrades. And same-day upgrades allow you to be able to upgrade your tickets in real time, 30 minutes before the game, all the way down into the lower bowl or whatever. So you buy the cheapest tickets at the very top. I was in the very last row for the last game. And as soon as it hit 30 minutes in, I went ahead and jumped on it, got all the way down to the lower bowl. And I was in like section 117 with both my kids, and I paid less than half for the tickets compared to everyone around me. So
that's a really good tip, actually.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Like, they want to get the fans closer.
Right.
They want to move them down. So there's an advantage to them to do that at a cheaper price. That's money they wouldn't have never made ever anyways. Those tickets are I am assuming those are tickets that fans have given up officially on, or how does how does that work?
So what happens is they keep a set of tickets handy just in case,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and different levels. And so you can choose, and like in Nashville, you can choose to upgrade to the club level, upgrade to the lower bowl, or upgrade to the all-inclusive lower bowl, which is including all the food. And it's I think $79 a seat to upgrade to club, $109 to the lower bowl, and then $129 to get into all inclusive. And if you know much about playoff tickets in the lower bowl are probably $500 to $600 a seat. And you can pick up, if you are able to get one of those $15 tickets, or the set of those $15 tickets, and then upgrade it for $109, you're sitting right up on the ice. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's the craziest deal you can get. So that's why, and by the way, that's how I've done both of my playoff games. I've done that, and both times I've sat right down in the lower bowl.
So is the $15 ticket thing, is that a drawing that they're doing? So you're texting in, and then you get selected?
So what happens is you register as a verified fan, and they verify your address that you're in that market. And then once they do that verification process, you register and say, what tickets am I interested in? Am I interested in only one game or all games? And they text you the day of the game saying you've been selected to be able to potentially get them. First people to get the 100 tickets gets them.
Gotcha.
Right. And I did it within 3 minutes and didn't get them. So there's a lot of competition in that. But the thing is if you sign up for that, you can also get access to the tickets that they release at face value. And then whatever doesn't sell is where they offer the same day upgrades. So it's just that surplus that they keep just in case they need stuff. And so you end up with some really good things. So it's kind of an NHL tip.
No, it's cool. They've learned, I think the NHL's learned a lot from the NFL, because the NFL has been really good at tickets for the last decade. I mean, the NFL has figured out really the way to maximize their ticket, the tickets into the stadium. And they do a lot of things to get those stadium full, even when the teams are bad. Yeah. They do a lot of things to get a lot of fans in there. So they've really figured that out.
Yeah. Nashville has, I think it's over 130 straight sellouts of the stadium. And you have to pay to get on a waiting list to get season tickets now. And they will only let full seasons.
I would not have picked Nashville as a hockey team. Or a hockey city. I would not have picked San Jose as a hockey city.
Right.
We've had the Sharks there for a long time. And so it's interesting. Mike, I found out you're an NHL fan. I had no idea. We've been hanging out for a couple of years now. You got hooked through college hockey?
Yeah, we have a college hockey team. It's actually really good in here, D1, and we've been to the Frozen Four a few times in UNO. And so I got really hooked as a kid going to those. And so naturally, we don't have an NHL team that's close. Besides, we have like Minneapolis, Chicago, Nashville, I guess is relatively close. St. Louis, some of those. But so I became a fan of kind of Minnesota, Chicago, and Nashville. Those are kind of the three teams I follow. And but I love the Predators. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, what are you showing there, Dwayne?
Oh, it's just a catfish swimming by.
I've become a huge fan of Olympic hockey, and the rink's a little bit bigger and the plays are a little bit better, and it's not quite so brutal. Although the NHL, I think, has settled down a little bit.
Did you just say that it's not so brutal?
Yes, I did say it's not so brutal.
That's what's great about hockey.
Oh, that's if you're going to a fight and a hockey game breaks out, it's just Olympic. I don't know. Olympic hockey has been great. So whenever it's on, I really enjoy watching that. The rinks are just a little bit bigger, and you just get a little more. You get a little more stick play than you do in the NHL. It's just so fast. The NHL.
You know what's funny? The commercials and stuff that's happened and the impact of them into the world, it's just hilarious. So now, whenever the first person gets sent to a penalty in the penalty box in Nashville, they do this whole thing where they go. They play that clip where the guy goes, we're going to send you to the pit of misery. And the entire stadium goes, dilly dilly. Oh. And my daughter, that's all she wanted to do. That's all she wanted to go to the game
excited for that
just
part.
So she could say dilly dilly.
Get somebody a penalty. Well, I know stadiums are getting more and more tech driven, especially, around the Super Bowl and some of those playoff events where there's a lot of things going on to interact with on your phone. While you're sitting there. So baseball would be a great a great thing for that because it's just boring. No matter how you slice it, I mean, it's just sitting there. It's good beer and hot dogs and peanuts and stuff like
I'm
that.
gonna have to try to go to the all-inclusive section at some point and see if I can on my phone order food.
Totally.
That would be awesome. I just don't want to have to get up. Can I order like one of those urinal things that as well, so I don't have to leave?
Porta potty. Hey, bring that porta
Never have
potty
to
over
leave.
Well, I never thought I'd hear an all-inclusive at a hockey game. Like that's a a vacation in Mexico, not
well, I think there's like a section up at the top that you can get into, which includes unlimited beer.
Oh, the all-inclusive doesn't include beer.
No, in the all-inclusive in the bottom, it's food and beer. But I think there's a spot in the third section at the top of the stadium that if you're in that, I think they call it like the Bud Light zone, and you get unlimited beer.
I think they should make that first row that sits on the glass, that entire row around the entire ring should be unlimited beer. Just because you want those guys to be rowdy and on the cameras, it's a lot better if those guys are good and liquored up, and it's kind of funny to watch them at least, on the other side of the glass. And they can distract the players. I think it'd be pretty entertaining if that happened.
If you're sitting right on the glass all the way around, you can afford unlimited beer.
That's a good good point, especially during playoff time. Those seats are not cheap.
Oh my gosh. Well, no tech in there, but fun to have some hockey conversation. I know with the playoffs going on right now, it's a big deal. And of course, we don't have a team here, so Omaha doesn't follow hockey as much. But I know in some places where it's going on, and I know some other podcasters that I listen to are very much into the hockey season. So whether you watch hockey or basketball, good luck to the team that you follow. Speaking of teams that you follow, we are going to talk about some gaming. Dwayne, you contacted me a while back and said, dude, I got this gaming system running on a Raspberry Pi. So I want you to break that down. Tell me what you did. First, why'd you do it? Was it just a challenge? And then tell me how you put this thing together.
Yeah. So let's see. Why did I do it? There's a couple of reasons I ended up doing this. So one is, do you remember Nintendo released this it was like a retro NES that was really small, and everybody started hacking them, and it was impossible to find one.
Yeah.
You remember that? So I wanted to do that, and I wanted to get one, and I could never get one, and I wasn't going to pay 4 times the cost of one to get one because I was like, that's just stupid. That people, I'm sorry, if you spent that much money on one, you're a brilliant person, but not really. Anyway, so especially after you see what I'm about to show you, you're going to be like,
how much were they retail?
They were only supposed to be like $40 or $50, and people were selling them for like 200, 150, $200. Yeah, you couldn't find them. And then what Nintendo did, I mean, they sold like crazy, and Nintendo discontinued it. And they said they didn't intend to, they got a hit on their hands. They didn't really mean for it to be a hit. They just were doing it to like celebrate like a anniversary or something. And then what they then did is make another version, which was a Super NES that was like this. And it looked like a mini version of the NES. And so, or the Super NES, and the other one looked like a small version of the NES. And you got the real controllers, and people even went as far as you could go online and get the controllers with a wireless controller for an NES, and it was the real looked like the real old NES controller, and so that's pretty neat, and I love it. I think it was kind of a cool thing. So that's kind of started me on this whole, man, I really want to be able to play Super Mario, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and Tecmo Bowl, and all that stuff. So that whole retro gaming thing started kicking in, and I was thinking, oh man, remember all those games when I was a kid? So I was like, okay, I'll kind of listen in, and then I was listening to What the Tech, and they do a post show on that with Paul Thurrott and Andrew Zarian, and I was like, they kept talking about it, and you guys know I've been flying back and forth internationally for like 3 months, and so I'm listening to podcast on the flight, and they keep talking about how they're going to talk about it in the post show, and I was like, and I'm like, whatever. So realized that you could do this from there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go see what does it take, right? Because they went on this for like 4 or 5 episodes where they would talk about, oh, and in the post show we're going to talk about this, and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm gonna Patreon, I'm gonna Patreon a good show like this one.
Nice.
And
which you do. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So what we ran into on that one is I just said, okay, I'm going to try to figure this out. I don't really need to listen to a podcast to figure it out. So I was like, how hard could it be? And Jim, do you remember back how many? It was like maybe 2 of the meetups ago when I showed up and I had Raspberry Pis and I did a Pi bar.
Yeah.
And I did like a NAS, a media center, and all that stuff with a Raspberry Pi. And so I had like 3 Pis just sitting in my drawer. And I was like, okay, they kept talking about doing it with a Raspberry Pi. Let's see if you could actually do it. So I started doing some research, and I think we start in the hardware, right? Because everybody's probably going to ask about that. Like, I started with this Raspberry Pi 3 starter kit, and in my show notes, I've got links to this stuff.
Too.
And so that is kind of a thing that here I wonder if I can copy. Can you maybe copy and paste it into the chat window?
I just did.
People can
it's
see?
there.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yep.
So so the thing is that what I did is I went and found, that's what I originally bought. Now, and keep in mind, I've had these things for almost 2 years sitting aside. Now, as far as some people will ask me how big is the micro SD card that I put in it, and I don't actually remember. I think it's a 64. If I had to recall, I had a bunch of 64s laying around. You don't need 64 unless you're going to load it down with some ROMs, and it really doesn't start eating space until you start getting into things that are like PlayStation type of games. So anyway, so I went ahead and I got the Pi, and I got a 64 gig micro SD card. Then I haven't moved it into this case yet, but mainly because I wanted to show this case to you guys, and if I put it in this case, I could show it to you.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And so this thing is a little NES thing, and if I had to tell you that I would do it over again, I wouldn't get this one. I gave you the link to the one that I have, and what it is it's a basic case. And so if you want a basic case, you can get this. This is cheaper than what I would probably recommend. And the reason is they do have ones where the actual power button and reset button work. So mine, if you know anything about Raspberry Pis, you got to put the power in it, and there's no on off. Right. It's just pull the plug, right? And so you might want to think about the power adapter if you go with this case. And they have ones that even have a remote control that will turn it on and off. And they also have some that have fans in them and stuff like that. So what happens is this: when you open the little tray, this is where you would plug in the USBs and the network adapter. So just keep in mind that you're probably going to have it open like this all the time when you're doing it. I am using a Cat5 connection on mine, but you don't have to. And then what I also have is and this is the thing that was funny. I was like, oh, I need a controller. And so I was like, I'm just going to try an Xbox controller to see if it'll work. And sure as the world, if you have an Xbox One controller, and I think a regular Xbox controller that has the USB power cord, you can plug an Xbox One controller with a USB power cord into it, and it works just fine. The only thing that I am running into is that there are these arcade type games that you will remember, like when you think of Pac-Man at the arcade, those don't work with a controller. You need like a different type of joystick. Like it's really made to work with a keyboard and a map to physical buttons. And so it's not like a NES where you can map those directly to a controller. So I would just warn you that if you're wanting to do arcade, I've got a different thing that I'll talk about in a bit that might help you build a real arcade machine. So if you haven't figured out, the whole thing here was I wanted to make a Nintendo Entertainment System. I wanted to play Mario, I wanted to play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and all that. So I had no intention of doing anything except making an NES when I started this thing. What I ended up doing is I had to go find the software that would let me do it. And the software that I'm using is something called RetroPie. And I don't know if you could see the screen over my shoulder here, but RetroPie is basically this operating system for a Pi that lets you put in all these different things. And one of them is a Nintendo. I've got PlayStation. I got Sega 32X, Super Nintendo. I've got arcade games, Atari 2600, Sega Master System, the Sega Genesis, which they call Mega Drive, Neo Geo, Nintendo again. And so all of these are showing up based upon the ROMs that I've loaded. So RetroPie will give you emulators for a ton of different things. Like I just haven't, I got tired of downloading ROMs. So I just kind of quit one day because I got so many of them going that I don't know what to do. Yeah, so someone said that the Genesis was called Mega Drive in the UK. It doesn't surprise me that this is the logo. And I think you can actually change these logos and things in it. I haven't really played around with the like customizing it to my own look and feel, but there are a lot of people that do that. And if you saw, I actually had a minute ago, I had the what do you call it? The Mario Brothers on. But just to give you, you know what? You guys, just to show like that Sega is working on it as well, I can fire up the old Sega and you'll watch behind me and you'll actually see it loaded up the emulator and you'll see the Sonic the Hedgehog come up so that you can see that it actually runs all the different games that you might want. And if we really think about it, you're not really spending a lot of money. I see here that RetroPie come with a ZX81 emulator. I don't know what that is, so I can't answer the question. However, Jim posted up a link right above that for you to see like the first installation, but it's also got the download, and it'll give you all of the different things that it can do.
The TX or the ZX81 was the old Timex Sinclair 1000. That was the old basic that you could membrane keyboard and you could just do basic on it, which was the old basic. Yikes.
It would not surprise me, and if it doesn't do it, it seems like it's extensible so that you can add additional emulators. So if you really want to get into it, you can go and make it emulate all kinds of stuff. And what's funny about it is, let's just kind of think about this. Jim, how much is that Pi that I sent you? What, about
50.
$50?
50.
And truthfully, you could just get the Pi and not get the whole kit, because if you're going to put it in the case that I have, a power connection, if you've got a micro USB power adapter sitting around, then you're talking, what is a Pi 3 is probably what, $35?
40 maybe, 35, 40. Yeah.
Yep. And so you're talking, you've got that, and then you end up with yourself a Sega Genesis, a Sega Master System, all of these different games systems and everything. And the ROMs are completely legal, the ones I got, right? I don't know, honestly. The website, so I went and I put a little link in here as well that gives you like install instructions, where to download it. It also gave you like where Lifehacker, for example, wrote this whole thing about how you can build this. And as far as, so one of the people in the chat room's asking, so a 2-year-old Pi, which version runs okay? So I would recommend that you get a Pi 2 or a Pi 3, but it will work for either. When you download it, you download one of the two. What I would tell you is I don't know if a original Pi will give you any trouble as far as running like PlayStation games. So, and And I actually gave you a link to the Pi that I'm using. So it's a, let's see, I think mine was just a Pi 3.
Yep.
Yeah. So
just a 3.
Yeah, and I don't think it really matters. It comes down to, does it have the ports you want? Does it have like Wi-Fi if you want it and stuff like that? Because the processing power, what shocked me is, and Jim and I were having this conversation because I was playing Sonic, and I was like, Jim, do you remember when Sonic the Hedgehog and it was like flying around the screen, and we thought that was the coolest thing, because how in the world could the graphics keep up with this? And this thing runs that thing without a single issue, including like PlayStation games. It'll run PlayStation games just as good. So I would tell you, it's amazing to me that an almost 2-year-old Pi can run that much and do such a good job at it. And again, I gave you where I downloaded the ROMs where I got some ROMs. I would tell you, download your ROMs at your own however you want to do them. Just be aware. I don't know what the details are on a lot of these things, but
don't worry, we don't have a lawyer on the show, so we're fine.
So just know, download at your own risk, boys and girls. Now I will tell you, it's like one of those typical download sites where you need to make sure that you pay attention, that you don't click on trying to install something, but you're not gonna, you don't end up with like viruses and stuff like that or anything. It's more them trying to get you to install software. So if you aren't a smart downloader person, you might want to get some help on the ROM download, but it's just one of those mirror download sites that makes you redirect. So just pay attention to what you're clicking on. So that's pretty much how I built this thing. And I will tell you, the most fun I've had in a long time is watching my little girl playing like Mario World and or even better yet, like Mario Brothers, and her getting upset that you run out of lives without continues. And I'm like, see, the struggle was real.
For 99 more cents, I can just keep continuing, right? Like, where's the dollar keep going option?
Well, like normal, new game systems, all the games are like, oh, well, I can go back to my save spot, right? Where like, and I told her, I was like, no, you've got to find the Easter eggs in it where you can get 99 lives and have to perfect the action of jumping on that turtle just right, where he just sits and bounces, and you have to walk away for a bit because it's going to take a while he bounces up and down the turtle. Oh yes, so up, down, A, B, select and start. Contra is on this thing, and that works. So
I love that you guys have that memorized.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, that was well, you know what? It used to be, if you think about it, and Jim, you remember this, there used to be magazines, and you would go get the magazine, and the magazine would tell you all the tricks and all the cheat codes and everything. And like, I was playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on it, and I go through and I beat 2 guys, and I forgot. You remember the spot where he starts running behind the bike? Like the fat guy's like on the bike and you're running behind him, and it gives you a code. It gives you a code, and that's the continue code. So if you can get to that level and get that code, and so it used to be, think about it, we didn't have camera phones.
Right.
You used to have to run and go find like a notepad and write that thing down so that you wouldn't lose it. And then, and people were like, I'll sell you how to get the Mike Tyson code. So it was like the funnest thing. I mean, it goes back, it brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. There might be people who don't have gray hair.
No, actually, most of the listeners probably that listen to this show remember those days. That was a big deal. I left the United States in '86, and I grew up around. So I grew up in the Bay Area in the Silicon Valley, and we played a lot of arcade. I had a Timex Sinclair 1000. It was still a little early, 84, 85. There were some gaming systems, but they were pretty expensive, and my parents just weren't buying that. So we would go down to 7-Eleven, throw quarters play Space Invaders or play, Asteroids, Pac-Man, some of those, right? Some of those early ones. And then I left the country for 3 years. I was in the military. A lot of things changed between 86 and 89. I got married in 89. I came back. A lot of things change when you're married and you have kids right off the bat and you don't have a lot of money. Yep. So I missed 86 to 94 probably in the gaming world. I just didn't. I was busy doing other things. And actually, I missed a lot of those days.
Yeah, well, you missed out on a lot.
I know.
It was awesome.
I know.
So let me give you a little trick here when you get this thing going, because it took me a little while to figure this out. And Jim, I'm going to try something that we've never done here before. There you go. Let's see if I can do this. You tell me if this works. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see your file folders.
Okay, so what happens if you want to get to the Pi? Once you get the Pi installed, the thing that most people are going to try to figure out is how to get the ROMs on it. And what I will tell you is you could put the ROMs on it by doing it over like a file like putting it on the actual micro SD. This is not the way you want to do it. What you want to do is put it on the network. It will register itself as RetroPie. So you just do a whack whack. If you don't know what that is, it's that. I don't know how to zoom, but it's basically / RetroPie. And once you do that, you'll see these file shares. And I'm pretty sure that this is the splash screens that you can replace or modify. But you go into ROMs, and then you'll see in here a folder for all the different things that it can do by default, right? You can add other emulators like an Atari 7800. I never even knew that they made a 7800. I think it was the death version of the Atari. But you can come in and you can see all these different things that you can add. SG-1000, didn't somebody ask about that?
No, that was a Timex Sinclair 1000.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, so what you do is if you have like an NES, which I'll double click on this just so you can see, and you can see here where you just drop the zip file that they give you directly in there, and that's all you do. That's how you get a game on it. And as soon as you drop something in and it recognizes that that game is in that folder and that folder is understood, it pops up in the UI so that it shows up in your menu as a selectable item. So until you put something in the NES folder that is recognized, you won't have anything there. And then what you'll find though is some of them, like if you start going into the PlayStation, for example, PlayStation will actually give you like an SRM or like a bin file sometimes, a Q and the SRM. And basically, do you remember how you had a memory card on a PlayStation? Because a PlayStation was a disc, right? So you couldn't save the file on the disc. So you had to have a memory card. So it actually emulates the memory card. But it's funny because in the UI of the system, it looks like a memory card. So even in the emulator, it emulates the memory card. So it's kind of cool. But that was something it took me a little while to figure out what's the easiest way to put the ROMs on it. So what I do is I back up the ROMs to a computer, drag and drop them over. So I always download them to a single place. And then, of course, I put it on my Synology NAS as a backup, which is then backed up to numerous cloud services. Back up your crap. And so the other thing is the Lifehacker article looks something like this. So if you want to see the RetroPie stuff, and it'll tell you all about it, as well as the downloading place, you can come here. And again, you can see that there is a different image for the Raspberry Pi 0 and 1. 2 and 3, make sure you get the right one. And then as far as RetroPie will give you this whole information about how to do things. And if you want like advanced configurations and you want to add different emulators and things like that, it'll give you all the information on how to do it. So if you want to super geek out, you can super geek out. You can become Jim. And then that complete ROM place, basically you come in here and you just say, if you want like a Nintendo game, you click on it, and then what it will do is it will give you the information on all the different Nintendo games. Just ignore. And basically, you can come in here and find the Nintendo game that you want. So again, not the hardest thing in the world to do, but it is something that you can do. And if you're on the audio, just know the show notes will have that, and you can also download the video later to take a look at those. I just wanted to show you where these things are because of the fact that if you're looking for it, it can be a little cumbersome. But let's say, Jim, I'm the guy who just thinks it's cool. I want a retro gaming experience, and maybe I even want to have my own little mini arcade. And I either want, let's say that you have a Pi and you wanted to build an arcade out of it, right? The company that I put a link here, that is that Game Room Solutions company, which is GRS, because I started playing with this, I was like, oh, it's cool that I can put it on an NES thing, but why can't I make it my own arcade? These people will actually sell you a plug-and-play system completely built, or you can supply your own Pi, and they'll supply you the cabinet, and you can get they'll sell you the controllers and all of this stuff. So if you want to go full bore on this thing, then you can absolutely do it. And they're absolutely a really good company to deal with, from what I can tell. I've seen a lot of good reviews on them. And if you decide like, oh, I want the actual like controller, like I want a controller that's like the old arcade controller, they have a thing where you can get the controller and you just plug it into the TV and it becomes a Pi, and it has the Pi inside of it. So they've got some really cool stuff. Like Jim, if you go to the main screen on it, to their main page, you can scroll down to the bottom to like featured products. And just to give you an idea, you can see they've got that thing in the middle that's an actual like just keyboard thing. Now the one to the right, the arcade control panel kit. And so you don't have to build the whole thing. You can just get this and the Pi's inside of it, and that hooks to the TV, or you can hang a TV on the wall. And so for $109, you've got this whole thing. You mount the TV to the wall, and you just put this thing on a stand in front of the TV, and you've got like a huge arcade game. So all of this stuff is really kind of cool. And you can choose like different layouts. You can choose if you want a roller ball so that you can play all these different games. But it's another thing that you can do if you really want to start getting into it. And apparently this is a big deal. Like people are really getting into this stuff quite a bit. So I figured when I got it working, I pinged Jim and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I kind of like the gear here, we're showing on the page where you can kind of custom build your own, or you can buy them pre-made. Uyghur, have you ever played an arcade game? I mean, seriously,
oh, yeah.
Have you put a quarter in an arcade game and played it?
Yes. Oh, definitely. We used to go to Nicola Play. They had one in Omaha if you went there, and it was probably more geared towards actually my generation when I was like 5 or 7, but it was all those games and they're actually just a nickel. So you go there and play for a nickel. And I loved those. And yeah. I played pinball. My dad and I still enjoy playing pinball. Hard to find a pinball machine around anymore,
it's
but
making a little comeback. They kind of come and go, They get real popular, and then they'll fall out, and they'll get popular and fall out.
So Jim, did you say that there was a pinball? I just
created my SD card, so I've got it all ready. I just need to put it in the Pi. So if you guys could stop yapping and I get off the podcast, I'm gonna go make a game system now. That'd be great.
Well, the funny thing is it's just too easy, right?
It was. I mean, that was while we were talking. Just put it on there, and even on a Mac, you can use a little Apple Pie Baker as the utility to flash that image onto the SD card.
Look at that. Even a Mac can do it. So
even a Mac can do it.
Even a fake computer can do it, Jim. So did you notice that there is an actual virtual pinball cabinet that they have as well? So they sell like kits for you to be able to build a virtual pinball. And from what I understand, they even have the sensors in them so you can bump them. And all. So that's things like that are really cool. And again, it depends on how far you want to get into it. If you just want to get like you have an old Pi laying around, throw it in there and have fun. Oh, look, somebody missed the PC Mac banter. Well, I brought it back because I'm old school.
That's true. We haven't had it because I came so far on the Windows side.
I know. I was a bad influence on
That
you.
used to be our go-to thing to talk about.
I know. That's kind of the whole reason I brought you on
I
was
know. Diversity.
So we could have that PC, that PC Mac battle, and then you were like, "Hey, I like Windows." What?
No, that's no fun.
No, that is fun, Jim.
I know.
In case people don't know, I do work for Microsoft as a disclaimer.
I think most people know that who listen now, but no, that's pretty cool. Again, I think that popularity comes and goes, and I got a buddy who's built out a couple of these arcade games, and he's got them in the basement, and just go down there and they got it rigged. You don't put the quarters in. You can just turn it on and do some things and stack up the credits, and then just start playing it. And man, it had been a long time since I played Asteroids. And I was just playing for like an hour, and I forgot how much that makes your thumb hurt because you're like,
oh yeah,
on the Switch.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember? So okay, well, I don't know because both of you were out of the world, but and the other one wasn't even in the world here. So, but you're overseas, and he's not even born. So
all true.
So, but you used to have this thing that I ran into because when you use the Xbox controller, know that you're using that controller component, not the joystick part at the top that you normally use to move around. You're using the up, down, and left and right at the bottom of it. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like the D-pad, I think is what we call it.
Yep.
And if you haven't played Mario Brothers or like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, you forget the burn on your finger that you get from using a D-pad
because you compare it to a joystick.
Yeah, and so because you've been pushing this button and it's like compresses to a point where it hurts your finger, and for like 3 days I walked around the house because I kept playing this stupid thing, and my fingers just burning. It was so funny, but it was awesome.
Brought you back to the good old days, right? That thumb burn,
or a thumb cramp. I remember rolling my hand over to those, those rollers.
Oh, yeah.
You do that enough, and all of a sudden your hand will just kind of cramp up into the claw.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, exactly. And then you can like stab at your buddy's heart and just.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it does have Mortal Kombat on it.
Right. Yeah. No, right on. Yeah. No, many an afternoon spent at 7-Eleven on that roller. My friends are always so much better at it than me.
But think about it, Jim. You could take a pie, get one of those things, and you can order one that has the roller ball and play and play that kind of game. And it's like so cool. But again, that this is my whole retro pie thing. So you guys now got to see this.
I like it.
I think the coolest part though is the fact that it just doesn't cost that much money. I mean, you can have so much fun with that. And even if it's just like, okay, I'm going to use it for like a week or two, and then you're like, okay, whatever. I think it's worth it. I mean, I got so much enjoyment out of just watching my kids get to play the games I played when I was a kid. And the fact that you see them like go, this is hard. And you're like, yes, it is hard. And and they're like, and it didn't matter. I think it goes back to you realize that the graphics and everything that's so realistic is all cool and all, and that's a different type of cool. But you almost wonder, where are the platformers of the old days? Like, where are those type of games? And I think what was that game that came out, Cuphead, that everybody started playing, and then I even remember listening to like a bunch of podcasts. I think one of the Twit podcast, Leo was talking about how hard it was. He forgot how hard a platform game was, and I kind of miss that because you don't see that anymore. It's all first person shooters,
right?
And so I really miss the platformer. So I think that's maybe, who knows, maybe somebody will pick up on bringing a platformer back, because I think the Cuphead thing sold like crazy. So maybe we'll see more people bring stuff like that, because I think retro gaming is maybe a little cooler than people thought. Even with Nintendo selling the crap out of those things, they just said they couldn't keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
So they just canned the thing. So, why in the world? I don't know why we don't see that stuff coming back.
Well, and such a fun party party thing, right? Like you got your guys coming over, and you can geek out on one of those things for hours, right?
Yeah.
They are a great party. Yeah, because you just play them and it's done fast, right? They go pretty fast.
I'm still gonna go back to Fortnite when it's by myself. Like I'm not gonna play these retro games late at night, but for like a party game, I think it would be a lot of fun.
Oh, and by the way, you can go to multiple controllers. It does support multiple controllers. So, and my Raspberry Pi has 4 USB ports, so I'm pretty sure it would support 4 controllers.
I'll also let you guys know how it works on the one, because I've only got the Raspberry Pi. I think this is a 1. It's only got 2 USB ports.
I bet if you use the older games, Mike, you'd be fine. Those things took nothing. Like they were huge. Like in the day, they were running fans in the back of those things, and like, they were pushing them to the edge to make them work. And today, like, I've got more computing power in my Fitbit watch than those things, had total. So.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, there's like, you can find some pictures online of people who have taken this thing and laid it on top of a Nintendo. Actually, dang it, I have an actual real Nintendo NES that I found in a basement somewhere, and so I was trying to get it to work years ago. But if you took this and I laid it on top of a regular Nintendo, it is so funny to see the difference in size. And then this thing, it lay it on top of a PlayStation, Jim. It's running PlayStation games too, so you have to go even bigger. It's pretty funny that they do that. And Jim, you don't have to you don't have to do this.
I was going to say, is that the one? And then you'd rub them. There were like 8 different actions you would do to try to get those things to work.
Which is so funny. All the articles now, like, that was the worst thing we could have done for those games, right? Like, it did not help.
Yeah.
It was it was just taking it out and putting it back in. That's what all you were supposed to do. You were not supposed to blow on it.
Yeah. But there was like blow into it, or
did it.
Tap it on your knee, or pencil, or right. There were all these, and you're like, why are you doing that? Oh, it just works better if you just do it. If you just jam a pencil in there, it works better.
Right.
What?
Do you see this? Somebody just said cartridge harmonica. I love it. That is so awesome. True. See, everybody's loving it because it brings you back to your childhood, memories,
right? That's what. Yeah,
those were the days. Dwayne, they don't have what was the precursor to virtual reality, which is the tank game. Was always my favorite, where you would go up to it, right, and it would have that thing over the screen, and you would have the tank controls, that you do. I love me some tank. That was one of my favorites.
Well, that's because you have to have, if you want to play tank, I have to go retro with my Oculus, so I can.
I know. Yeah, there you go. Fancy, the fancy head, the fancy gear. Hey, you got a little hack. We're gonna run out of time, and I want to get this hack in here.
Oh, okay.
So let's talk about your headphones.
All right, so I'm going to talk about this because this is Braggy headphones, or Broggy, or whatever you want to freaking call them. Anyway, so these headphones you can get online, and I would tell you that they weren't so good. As a matter of fact, they actually started making a version where you could get custom molds to your ear to address the problem that you couldn't get them to seal real well. And so there may be additional headphones on the market that you can do this, and I'm going to give you a quick tip on this because it costs you 20 cents maybe to do this and to save a set of $300 headphones. So I'm going to hold this up and you can see it a little bit. You see that orange in there? And here, I'll flip up the little plastic piece. You see that orange piece? Mm-hmm. That's an actual earplug. And when I say an earplug, like a 30-cent set of earplugs. And what you do is you cut it, and then you poke a hole in the center of it, and you put it on top of in the actual headphones, and it turns it into where it seals in your ears. It takes a set of Broggies and makes them 4 times louder, and actually turns them completely to sound isolating. So if you've ever spent a lot of money on like Shure headphones, I guess would be an example, where they have that memory foam thing that fills up in your ear, it makes these into a completely, and if you don't know about Broggies are the ones that actually are completely wireless like this. And I couldn't even use them because in an airport, the noise would just go around it. Or if you're sitting on an airplane, you would hear the from the airplane. And I don't know if my sound thing here took care of it. But the thing is you this solved that problem. I actually use these all the time now, and it actually also fixes the fact that these things have something called like a sound isolation mode, or like where you can turn on and off the ability to hear around you through the microphones in them. And it actually fixes that so that it works now. You can hear the things around you because of the fact that now they're isolated out. And it is weird when somebody starts cracking a bottle around you, because for some reason that thing's like sonic ears for that. but in general, yeah, just don't crack a plastic bottle around your Broggies, because you can hear it from miles away. But in general, that's a little tip and trick for you. Another one. So I have another tip and trick that's not an NHL one. And so I would recommend you take a look at that. You can also go on like YouTube. YouTube has several videos that show you kind of how to do it to a set of Broggies. But I would tell you, any headphones you have like this, if you can figure out a way to get the sound isolation from a set of earplugs, I think you'll find that it will make even a bad set of headphones sound good.
That's a good tip. I got a pair of headphones I'm going to actually try that on, because I have the same problem. They're too quiet. So I'm going to try that out and see if that helps.
Yeah.
Those price point on those, somewhere between 100 and 350. Kind of depends on what model you get.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And these are, the cool thing about these are waterproof. They have sensors in them to check your heart rate. They have 4 gigs of storage, so you can put music on them and don't even need your phone. You can swim with them, and it even has activity monitoring and keeps up with like running.
What's the model on those, Dwayne?
These are the Dash.
Okay.
So I got these back when they first came out, and then there's a version of them that they will mold something for your ear. I would tell you, don't do it. Just buy the 10-cent earplug or 20-cent earplugs and put them on, and you'll get the same quality. So that'll save you probably $100-200.
Yeah, on Amazon right now, again, some are the Dash version, some are between 100 and 150. They have a new Dash Pro with Alexa. Like we needed Alexa in another place.
I don't need that in my ears.
I'll get Alexa in your ears.
Yeah, so I can buy Amazon crap from my ears
while you're out swimming underwater. The $329 for those, so a little pricey, but they come in that little case that you showed.
Yeah, which charges it.
Yeah, no, and I do like the idea of some wireless, where if you can get ambient sound through them, where you're wearing them all the time and you just don't see them. They're in your ear, but you barely see them. I do like that.
Well,
look.
They update these all the freaking time, and they just added a new beta feature that works perfectly. And what it is it can tell, like on your right cheek, you can actually tap your cheek twice, and you can choose a fast action for that. And so I've got that where it's next song, so I can actually just reach up and tap my cheek twice, and it'll go group and go to the next song. And it even, like when you get a phone call or whatever, it'll say, would you like to answer the call? And you can shake your head yes or no. And it has like a 4D menu that these things have. So if you haven't played with Broggies, I would tell you they're really cool. But again, I wouldn't say they're the best headphones in the world, but for what they are, like I'll throw this in my pocket whenever we're going to like a sport event, like for my kids or something, and I just want to listen to some music, and I can reach up and you just swipe your hand back or forward to turn, because it's got like a touchpad type of thing on the side, and I can turn on and off the people talking around me. So, and if you pull one out of your ear, it pauses the music and stops it. So stuff like that. I mean, they did a really good job. I mean, I would tell you that they're pretty good. My wife has a set of Bose that are wireless, and those sound probably a little better, but these have a lot more features and everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I'd love to get a pair like that. I for traveling, I went Bose over the year, Quiet Comfort 35s. So those
best headphones ever.
Yeah.
Just so you know, for the airplane.
Yeah, no, right on. They're super comfortable, great battery life, and you've been putting some miles on, my friend. I mean, every time I see you, you're flying another 5,000 miles somewhere to get some things done. Hey, anything we have a little bit of time here, but as you think about some of the stuff you're getting to work on, anything you want to talk about or you can talk about?
Do you hear every Cortana thing in the world going off right now?
What did you say?
No, it's a reminder.
Oh yeah. My 9 o'clock take my medicine reminder went off too. That's how old I am. Like, hey, yeah. she's going like
meds reminder.
Yeah, Cortana. I put that in because it shows up literally on every screen that I have, right? And so at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. I get this reminder, hey, because I've never been a guy to take meds in my life ever, and I'm on these now, and I was always forgetting. Like I was just like, how do I figure this out? Well, figured out. I'm always sitting down here at my desk, and Cortana reminds me. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so Jim, take my medicine reminder. That's what it was. It was a 9 p.m. Take my medicine reminder.
That's mine.
That just went out.
That's mine. I got to go take it. So every night at 9.
All right.
Yeah, so, Mike, how do you feel about that?
So, hey, Mike, just so you know, though, Jim, tell me this. This is where I actually like Cortana, because I put it on I don't know if you noticed, I held up an iPhone. The thing that went off is that I actually have a Galaxy S9 that I'm running as my daily driver right now. That's what went off a minute ago, and my Cortana speaker went off, and every computer in my room went off at the same time. And if you're trying to do reminders, that's actually better than Siri, better than Google Now. That's one of the things I'll give her credit.
I've got Cortana integration in through Skype now. And so there's like a Cortana bot in there, and I get the notification through Skype if that's the way you want to put it. So it's another way. It is pretty pervasive. I mean, Cortana is in a lot of things that you can, like you said, it'll do a lot of stuff for you. It's surprisingly powerful.
So how funny is it that Cortana interrupted at the time in which you wanted me to start talking about ambient computing and the future of this? And it was a perfect example. It went everywhere.
Yeah,
I know. And we actually did not plan that, boys and girls. It actually happened as a fluke. So Jim, you kind of were asking, like, what are some of the things? And most people who know me know that I have been kind of running a role as the worldwide lead architect for Microsoft for connected vehicle solutions. So I kind of led from a consulting services perspective. I was leading connected vehicle solutions for Microsoft for the last 2 or 3 years. So, and everyone's like, oh, so what about sync? And no, that's not what we do. That's like old stuff when we were thinking operating systems were important. At this point, operating systems aren't so important. And if you've kind of been listening in, Jim, have I ever been on this podcast and said that the cell phone is dead?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, so I've been on a couple of podcasts, and I think I might have actually been on yours a long time ago, and I kind of threw it in there as a tagline. And what I said killed the iPhone and killed the smartphone was the thing that we talked about at the beginning, was the Raspberry Pi. And what it is that if you think about this, just think about it for a second. You always had that you had a computer, and then you took the computer and you plugged your iPod into your computer to get music, and then that's how you got it. And so you always had this thing where you plug a thing into another thing to be able to make the other thing smarter. And then eventually the other thing becomes smart enough that it no longer needs the thing you were plugging it into. So if you look at it, an iPod became so smart that it replaced the need for you to necessarily plug it into a computer to get music on it. Then it eventually became a phone, and the phone you didn't have to. You used to have to plug a phone into your computer to sync your email and everything. And so now you don't do that, or even your contacts. And now you would never even think you would do that, right? And now what are you doing in a car, or what are you doing for a lot of things? Everybody's using the phone to plug in. And in your car, how many people listen to this plug their phone into their car to listen to music?
Yeah.
So you think about it, whether you want to say that you're plugging it in, a lot of people argue with me and they go, oh, I don't plug it in, I use Bluetooth. That's just a virtual wire, guys. That's it's like you're using the compute power of the phone because you have it to be able to, and the connectivity of the phone because the car didn't have it, or in the head unit or something of that nature, and so now what you're starting to see, and it started in Raspberry Pi, and I kind of started following this back then because everybody's like IoT, right? Internet of Things, if you don't know what that means, became kind of a big thing. And I started looking into it, and it was all about like pulling data back and doing predictive maintenance. And so if you go back and read a lot of that type of stuff, so when you guys show up at Build and stuff, I think you'll like, if anybody's going to Build, you'll start hearing about concepts that, I don't know if people who watch this might also watch Paul Thurrott talk about. He started up, and I've kind of been saying this a lot longer than he has, which is ambient computing is the thing that kills the smartphone. Because why? Like, I actually think that my kids will look at them and go, "You carried a slab of battery around in your pocket? That's so stupid," right? Because why would you do that? It's like you had to charge that thing every night. That's just crazy. And so I think these type of things, what you're seeing is that the compute power is getting small enough to get built into the device, and connectivity is becoming so pervasive. And then you have cloud that became a centralized, highly effective, highly scalable ability to be able to bring compute to a point where you can do some on the device, and it can connect to a highly connected cloud that can scale out. And so you start getting into this, and this is where you start really getting into, I can build ambient experiences, or an experience that follows me from what I would call multiple canvases. So it can move from a speaker, like we just saw with Cortana. It was on a speaker, it was on a cell phone, it was on a computer, and it didn't really matter. And it was a different UI and a different experience that was customized to that location from each of the different places. It's so someone goes, I need to still be able to talk to my mobile phone because I need to talk through it to be able to talk through the phone. Yeah, but you know what? A lot of people have a Bluetooth headset. If your phone became nothing but the size of a Bluetooth headset, and you could talk to it with a natural language conversation, you don't necessarily need that. And if you were near a screen, it could just display it on any screen that is available at the time. So you start getting into, I don't necessarily need to carry this stuff. And sure, maybe there's still a smartphone, just like there's still a PC and a laptop. But eventually, if you look at the number of devices, and I think I know Thurrott's been on this rant about this, is that the thing that if you look at a smartphone is a one-to-one relationship to a human being. But when you get into IoT and ambient computing, it's a many to one. So how do you excel and sell more smartphones than there are people? That's probably not going to happen, but it is very possible to sell more devices than you have human beings. So an example would be if I had a refrigerator, and I like to use refrigerators. I don't know why. I'm just because most people think refrigerators are dumb, right? But you could you're starting to see refrigerators coming out with screens on them. And that's like for chore charts and for other things, and being able to build experiences on a refrigerator, like having an app on your phone, or you have a notification system, just like that reminder I just got, that says, hey, I have a sensor that sees that you're out of milk. You might want to pick some up because the thing that you're in notices that you're there, and it knows that you're close enough to go get milk, and your refrigerator is providing the information that you need milk. And so you don't have to do that. Or you could even say, oh, it just auto orders milk and the milk's delivered, right? Or things like this are starting to come full circle. Like, the experience needs to go beyond a phone, right? It needs to go to wherever you are. And that is really this whole concept of ambient computing. And what we're really starting to see, and I would tell you, if you pay attention to what Microsoft's doing in this space, and this is no trade secrets or anything, you start looking at what we're doing around IoT. Everyone thinks like the Windows IoT thing. That really is not that. Go look at IoT Suite. Go look at IoT Hub. The ability to push and pull things from devices. And it doesn't matter what OS it is. That's irrelevant. The actual OS on a device is basically unimportant at this point. The thing that's important is the ability to get the service at the endpoint. So then you start looking at it and going, well, how do I start building applications that expand and can support an ambient state? And you have to get into conversational UIs and natural language UIs. And if you haven't looked at a combination of something, we have like bot framework is a new thing. There'll be some discussion about that at Build, a lot of discussion probably. We have something called Lewis that we've talked about, which is our natural language understanding engine, which means that you, as a programmer, you can program in. I'll give you an example of one that I've recently done. If you say no, you mean no. If you say okay, then what does that mean? That means okay. But what does it mean when you say no, that's okay? So being able to program it, you program against the intent of what you said, not what you said. And it changes the whole concept. So an example is if I say, if you asked me a question like what type of restaurant would I want? I'll just use that as an example. And I said, hey, I'd like some pasta. That actually means I want Italian. I need to program that that's Italian is the intent, but I could have said spaghetti. I could have said lasagna. I could have said any of that. And so one of the things we're doing with Lewis is being able to let you program a language understanding model to an intent that allows you to be able to do it. And you can do things like synonyms and be able to pull in synonyms. And so when you start looking at that, you can start building. And a lot of this started with the speaker because you needed to be able to do this. But if you've ever ridden in a car, like one of the things you always do is you hate the speech stuff in things. I think the speech stuff is about to change to a point where it's more conversational. You don't have to say it exactly like it was supposed to be said. You can actually say stuff like, my clients like pasta. If it just goes, oh, I'm looking for what kind. If you said pasta, it must mean that means you want Italian, right? So things like this are kind of some of the cool things that are starting to come out as we get into ambient computing. And then as you start adding all of these different devices and they're all working with you and everything, I can start learning a lot more and being able to do machine learning and being proactive and having, maybe when I make recommendations, I can, from all these different places, I start learning what you like and what you don't like, and then being able to kind of make things better. If you haven't played with cognitive services, I know the last time I was on, I kind of talked about this, but let's go back to our refrigerator model, our refrigerator discussion. Now it's gotten to where you don't have to have all these special sensors. Like I could actually take a picture of milk, of a milk jug and a whole bunch of different milk jugs and say, that's full, that's half full, that's empty. And I could train a model probably within an hour that if you passed me an image from an interior camera of a refrigerator, I could tell you what was in your refrigerator. And I could also tell you whether or not you're out of milk from just a camera. Just like in the car world, to give you an idea, just, some of the ideas I've had, like that, what could we do is take a picture of the back seat when you get out of a cab, and we knew that you held it. Like think about it in Uber. I take a picture of the back seat. I identify what does a cell phone look like, what do glasses look like, all of that type of stuff. And you get a message and the driver gets a message, hey, you just left your sunglasses in the back of the car. So stuff like this are where you start seeing ambient computing getting really cool. So I think what you're going to find is a lot of this stuff is starting to get to a really interesting spot. I noticed somebody was asking about, will cable companies kill this? Well, no, they can't, because a lot of times the service provider and the cost from what I'll call a MNO or a mobile network operator is getting cheap enough, and it's not a ton of data that's going back and forth, that the service itself can fund the cost of a LTE connected device or something like this. And then you start looking at what we can do with edge computing, and being able to push some of this stuff. Like I can train a model, push it down to the edge, and be able to run that model in a very low compute and be able to look for an anomaly. And whenever the anomaly goes off, boom, I fire the event. It doesn't really cost me that much to do that. And a lot of these places, they'll even do private MNO connections so that they can connect to a private copy of not the public side internet. It's like a private circuit over the MNO provider. So again, these are all like some of the things that are really starting to come. And I would tell you, if you listen to what's going on with Microsoft and AI, this is our big push, right? I actually think this is the next wave. This is the thing that makes having to carry your cell phone really kind of interesting. And if you don't believe it's on its way, look at what Apple did with the Apple Watch in the last release. They put LTE in it so that you don't have to carry your phone. Why can't that thing, it's already got Bluetooth, pair to a set of those Apple earphone things? And why the heck, to make that phone call, did I need to carry the slab of battery around? So, me personally, I would freaking love that. If I could stream music from the watch directly over, or why do I even need to do that? Why can't the watch be a trust? Yeah, so it's like, but think about it this way. If the watch is just a trusted device that adds into the car, and you say when this watch is present in the car that it's me, then why can't the car just authenticate you to Spotify and just play Spotify? Why can't the UI be right for the car? Because the thing is people don't want a phone UI in their car. They want a UI that's for the car in the car. Yeah. And if you look at, like, in the state of Georgia, just this past week, I think they passed a new law where you can't hold or touch a cell phone while you're driving. And that's because of the fact that a cell phone is distracting. So when you start building these ambient computing things, you make the UI and the way that it works, it's all about a user experience design, and it's all about doing it for what's right for that. So car manufacturers know when the laws allow you and don't allow you to be distracted in certain ways, and they can adjust the experience so that you don't have to get a ticket for touching a phone. I mean, one of my goals would be to never have to touch my phone in the car, ever. And, I'm having to, like, take a nice car and put up a sticky mount in the car and hold the phone up and all that type of stuff. But I think that we're starting to get to days where those services can just come to the device itself. And it's going to be about bringing it there in the right format so that it works right.
So wasn't that the idea with Apple CarPlay, though? Was that you take the UI of a car and you just use the phone because the cars weren't smart enough yet. They didn't have the connectivity. Okay, let's use the phone's connectivity, but give you a car UI.
So let me give you the problem with that. Okay. So let's say that you are, I'm going to try to come up with, let's say that you're Toyota. Okay. And Toyota sells a Lexus and they sell a Toyota. Okay. Why would I want the user experience in a Toyota to be equivalent to a Lexus? How do you separate that, right? And so when you start looking at it in the car manufacturing world, they actually want the experiences and the quality to kind of go up. What you're doing in CarPlay is everything's running on the phone. You're just taking over the whole screen, and it's putting a UI that's controlled from Apple. So it's just putting an iPhone in the head unit, and all you're doing is like a Citrix thing, right? Like if you're familiar with like TeamViewer or something like that, that's really all you're doing. And that is not what a car manufacturer wants, because that means, and the thing is that in CarPlay, the phone doesn't know a darn thing about the car. It knows nothing. So when a light goes off in the car that says that you've got an error, it doesn't even know it happened, right? So
from the car manufacturer standpoint, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like we want to be able to upcharge people for better experiences, but from the user standpoint, that's why we still use our phones instead of plugging them, because the phone is a consistent experience. I have the phone. I don't need to worry about what car I bought in order to have the best experience. I have the phone. So
right.
from a user standpoint, though, it's not the best idea. But it's great for car manufacturers.
No, actually, even at a user perspective, it's better if they build an experience that is appropriate for the vehicle, because car manufacturers know how to do that. Like they have access to the sensors of the vehicle. The Apple CarPlay stuff is just a smartphone interface for taking over a screen.
Or take out Apple Play and CarPlay and put in just using the phone via Bluetooth. Right. I use the phone and we talked about the whole being illegal part, and I get that, but it's the reason we keep going back to the phone is because we have such different experiences across the line. And even if that gets better, they're still going to be okay. If I get if I get a low end car, I'm going to have a low end experience, and high end car, high end one, or I can just worry about my phone and always have the same experience and not worry about it.
So that's kind of the basic experience, is being able to make a phone call. What I'm talking about is being able to offer services beyond that. And what you'll find is they're not going to target a service down to a low-end car that would not get consumed. Like, why would you put a full-on ability to work with somebody to help you buy like stuff and like a full-on concierge type of service? You're not going to see that pushed into a Ford Fiesta, right? Because that's not the market for it. My point is they can bring services that make sense to that market and differentiate their models and their lines to the actual person that is intended for the car. When Apple builds what Apple builds, they basically build something that's just commoditized for the mass, and it has no understanding of the vehicle and the extra safety features that you might have, the extra sensors. So if you took this and let's say that you're doing CarPlay in a Tesla, you're actually all you're doing is putting in where you can launch apps in a Tesla in a window, right? And while that's great and that's good, what if the apps were just in the head unit to begin with, and I never had to worry about that crap, right? Like, and not only that, my heads-up display shows the information because I actually bought a heads-up display. So I want to see stuff up there. I don't want, or if I started thinking about cars evolving to AR capability, then on the windscreens, CarPlay can't know if the car has that feature or doesn't have that feature, and can't adapt the UI based upon what's in the vehicle to make it appropriate for the vehicle canvas that it's laying on. So this is the difference, right? It's a matter of being able to actually build experiences that are better than just mirroring a phone screen, right? Everyone seems to think phone-centric right now, and you kind of have to move away from that and say, what if it was better? Because we think smartphone compared to the vehicle today is better, right? Is CarPlay better than what was in a older, like the cars of today? It probably is when you're talking about listening to music and stuff like that and making phone calls, because the speech UI in the car is just awful and all these things are awful. So imagine if it was better than the actual phone. What if it was more integrated? So it's kind of like that whole, I'm going to use the Steve Jobs term. You ready for this, Jim? The Microsoft guy using this. If you're serious about software, then you have to make your own hardware. Well, companies that make hardware are starting to go, maybe I should make the software that makes it better. And that's where you're starting to see this change. And the compute is getting to such a low cost to get that much compute, and the connectivity is getting to such a low cost that it's actually becoming a situation where you're starting to see just what happened back when you used to think that the best phone in the world was a small phone. Jim, do you remember this? When the Matrix came out, everybody wanted the phone that was that little bitty candy bar phone, because you didn't want that big hunk of battery in your pocket. We just accepted that I'll carry the big hunk of battery because of the value, behind running that much compute. And all you did was just put a laptop in your pocket. I mean, and then quit carrying around a laptop. So yeah, it's lighter than a laptop. But when I make it where you don't have to carry around a slab of battery and you get a better experience than you would get if you carried around a slab of battery, you stop carrying around a slab of battery.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're starting to go. And that's where my role seems to kind of be shifting more into how to build these AI experiences for edge devices. And I'm loving it because it's really cool, because it's you really have to think about, how do I make this better? Like, the way that I look at it is, when I'm talking about a car, I'm looking at it and going, how do I make you not use your phone? How do I make it better than the phone? If it's that you would pick up your phone, then it's a problem for me. Then it sucks because it's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the Star Trek world, right? That's really the world that they have a badge and it does everything, right? And when they've got some of these, but they're compute devices. They're just handy things that they can push, and who knows where that's going to go. I mean, I kind of agree with you in some ways. It's tough to think of a world without phones, because today that's all there is, right?
Well, it used to be tough to think of a world without a laptop.
Right. Yeah.
And Jim, think about it. If you go into the Star Trek world, you think about Star Trek back in the day. If you really get down to it, the thing that they hit, what if that's not really the microphone and that's just the authentication device?
Right.
That's just a token.
Yeah.
Right. And then you start thinking, okay, that's how it's identifying who you are and where you are, so that the local ambient computer can pick it up. And then, oh, wait a minute, what did Alexa just make a new keyword? Oh, computer.
Right. Yeah. 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 No, right on. Right on. No, right on. Some people, though, Dwayne, and we're kind of talking about this in the chat room, rural communities or areas where there isn't sufficient compute today, it's a little hard to imagine a day when that is there. But imagine a day when you don't have to have cell towers to necessarily have cell connection, right? When there's different technologies that we haven't even invented yet that are giving you connectivity, whether that's mesh or wired, or it's in the power lines, or however that's done, right?
Yep.
We just don't know how it's going to be done yet. And they're going to bring some of that connectivity, not necessarily in the way that we think it's connected today, right? Not necessarily with a cell. Today, when we think of a cell phone, we think of connectivity. What if everything's connected? What if everything is connected?
Well, you start thinking about it. It would be absurd that you would build a processor that was dedicated to do one thing and one thing only. But when you get into the world of the cloud, it's all about performance. And so now you're starting to see things like ASICs and FPGAs and these processors that all they do is this one thing, and they do it really, really quick, taking over the world. And that's pretty crazy if you think about it, because a general purpose processor is kind of like, right.
Wait, we're out of time on this segment. We want to talk a little bit. Well, I guess I said we weren't going to do a post show, but I think we will, because we want to talk a little bit. We want to catch up a little bit on some of that. So if you're listening live, hang around a little bit. We've got a little crypto to talk in the post show. Mike, you can stay around for a little crypto conversation.
Oh, for sure.
Does that work for you? Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good. And Dwayne, can you hang on, Dwayne, for some crypto conversation?
Yeah, and Mike's going to love this, because
don't give it away. Don't give it away. Come out. We'll also make the post show available for free on Patreon this week. So head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. There's an audio and video available for you out there if you want to go out and watch it, and you want to catch what we say out in the post show available for you. Don't forget, you can also help if you want to help support us while you're out there. You can. It's totally up to you. You can drop $1 pledge in there, $1 a month. Super easy to get in there and to make that work. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. I'll remind you, you can contact me, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. Twitter's a great way to do it. At Jay Collison, get you there as well. If you want to join us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/theaverageguy. And there's always some deals. Kevin or Michael or someone's always dropping a deal out there, at least one or two a week. And Mike, was there anything this week you remember? I thought we had We had a pretty good
I'm not
deal.
on Facebook anymore.
Oh, that's right.
So I don't see them.
Wow, dude, it's completely gone.
Completely gone.
Like,
Well, I mean,
gone?
I didn't delete the account, but the app is off, and I log in maybe once every 2 weeks.
I guess we'll let that go. Kyle Wilcox was questioning my statement from last week when I said email was broken. So that was pretty cool. And so we had a conversation around that. Michael Ray put out this Roomba like device that's actually, it weeds your garden for you. So they now have a robot vacuum, a robot mower, and now a robot gardener. And it's got a little it has a little weed whacker on the bottom, and it goes over and you protect your plants with little things around them so that it doesn't whack those. But then it senses a weed, spins the weed whacker. It's got a little charger on top, and you can check that out. I love those things.
You think that thing might have some IoT or connectivity?
Just a little.
None. I don't think so.
Just a little. So join us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/group/The Average Guy. Don't forget that AverageGuy.tv, both web and media hosting powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and trust. And, of course, Christian contributes to power that for us. And we appreciate Maple Grove Partners for their support. Get more information, maplegrovepartners.com. And don't forget, download the app if you haven't done that. Easiest way to listen on the road, live, whatever. It's a great way to do it. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Just download it. Have it as a backup on this phone while you still have it. I mean, there'll come a day when you don't need that phone anymore, according to Dwayne. But
yes.
For now, you still need that app on your phone. So go download it, have it available. It's a great backup for whatever reason you need to listen to the show and you don't want to look it up or find it anywhere. You can do that as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at the AverageGuy.tv Live. We'll stay around for a little bit of post-show. Got an update on some burst and some other crypto. By the way, great day in the market today. Bitcoin, 9,600 right now.
What?
Mike? Yeah, boom. So you want to stay around for the post-show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us on Patreon. If you've come over to be a part of the post-show, thanks for making. I know it's not the greatest experience to have to turn off the player and then go somewhere else to get that. You can actually subscribe, though. If you're a Patreon subscriber, there is an RSS feed you can subscribe to right through Patreon and get it right to your phone. So if you want to do it that way, that's maybe the best way to get that. For the last 3 weeks, we've made this feed free, and chances are I might make it that way for everybody anyways. I don't know. Love your feedback. Jim at theaverageguy.tv. The Patreon stuff is super helpful, but not necessarily all. That's not what I live for, guys, to be honest with you. It's just, it was an interesting way to kind of get support. There's a whole bunch of you that support us out there, including Dwayne, and Mike Weger does as well. If you want to do that, well, you've probably already done it, but theaverageguy.tv/Patreon gets you there as well. Dwayne, we'll hold off for a second because Weger stepped aside to let the dogs out. So
however, there is a very important topic at hand.
Okay.
And that is, let's go Preds.
What's
into
the score?
The first 1-0 Predators. What?
If you were listening to the regular show, we started off the show with a whole segment on NHL. On the NHL. We probably talked about the NHL too long, but it was a ton of fun.
Yes.
Dwayne, burst. Are you so okay? So what are you mining right now? Tell me what you're mining right now.
Right this second.
Not this second, but you know what I mean.
Well,
what are you mining?
I am mining some burst coin.
Okay.
Actually, you know what's funny? Right to the right of me, look, it's still in cellophane, this one. If you can't tell what it is, it's a 8 terabyte drive that Jim recommends for these things have been on sale lately, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been $139. Although Best Buy was running a pretty good sale, $149 for the Western Digitals. Those are a little bit better, I think, quality. Although I've been running the heck out of my Seagate drives without any problems. I haven't lost one yet. So
yeah, so
$139. Where did you pick that up locally at Fry's or something, or where'd you get it?
I did it off Amazon.
Okay.
So
yeah, $139. You shouldn't pay any more than $139 for those right now.
Yeah, that's what I paid for it. And I got 2 more, so that means I've got 4 of them now. And I would show you the other one, but it's over here with the light blinking on it because plotting these things takes freaking ever.
What are you plotting with? Are you using the plotter in the inside the
Q
wallet?
bundle? Yeah, the Q bundle.
Yeah.
I'm using that and the UI version, like you said, to be able to do it. And but I changed something on how I'm plotting a bit. So, because when I first did it, I was like, oh, okay, and I just didn't know what I was doing. So I took a machine and I tried to plot it, and it kind of actually sucked in a way because it can eat a machine. Like I didn't think about how many threads and all that type of stuff, and I was just like, yeah, just take whatever it says. Oh, what the heck? And it ate up like all the threads of the processor, and for days it just sat and grogged, and I was like, okay, this is not good.
Did you look at Turbo Plotter at all? Because that's the next upgrade where it writes to the SSD first, especially with those Seagate drives. It writes to the SSD first and then moves those files over. And by the time Turbo Plotter got stable, I was done plotting. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back and replot. That's pretty stupid. But
so is Mike where he can hear us now?
Do you have a SSD in your? Do you have an SSD in your box?
Oh, yeah. Because what I decided to do is I'm using my gaming rig to do the plotting because I'm running one of those processors here, that Core i7 X series processor in it. So that thing's got, I think, 6 hyper-threaded cores in it, and it's also got a ton of RAM, and also I just dedicate a few cores to let it run in the background, and it doesn't really matter to that machine, so that machine is running on the graphics cards. It's busy mining Bitcoin, and well, we'll talk about that. So it's doing GPU mining of Bitcoin currencies to be able to do that, and so I'm using that one to plot. Now, Mike said something that on the last time I was here that I have to give him his props for. Because oh god, I'm gonna say something nice about Mac Boy here. So you made a comment, or maybe it was Jim. It was probably Jim because it was insightful.
It's probably me.
Let's be clear. It's probably
remember we were having a conversation about why you might get an i3 processor for your mining rig versus a Celeron. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And you guys were like, well, I think I would just do the i3, even though it was more money. It's like, well, it's more usable down the road, or if I wanted to use it for something else long term. And what ended up coming out of that is the one that's running the mining rig that I have that's running the i3, I don't use it to plot. I use it to mine. So I plot on the VR rig that has the extra compute and everything. And then I move the drive over, import it in on the i3, and let it run. Now, I don't know that we're doing that on the Celeron would be the best idea because that machine's kind of slow to begin with.
Right.
But you don't have a problem with an i3 at all. And you don't need a ton of space or anything on it. So it actually works pretty darn well. So that, from a burst coin perspective, I'm kind of playing with it. The only thing I would say, you guys were having a conversation with me last time about whether it was worth doing Bitcoin mining anymore and I think it was because of the fact at that point, I think it was that graphics cards were so expensive that you couldn't justify the expense of a graphics card. And I think we can get into that conversation, but you had said that, you can move over to Burst. What I would say is there's no way to be profitable with Burst at all. I mean, there's really no way. I guess if you have
not at current prices.
Yeah. So what you're doing is hedging a bet.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. Mike and I spent a whole bunch of time talking about this in the crypto part. Like, what does worth it mean last week? Because nothing, actually very little of it's worth it at this point. What you're mining, because you're hedging a bet on most of it. Now that's a little bit different in, it kind of depends on the area, right? And what you're mining. But
there's not a way like if I actually said based upon current prices, what is the ROI? Like when is the rate of return get me to pay for the hardware and I turn into profit? I don't know that the drives will last long enough to hit profitability.
No, I already hit profitability on mine actually.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I only bought 2 drives though, so I spent $300 and I just crossed over that threshold the other day. Now, granted, I am using a few drives I already had, very small drives, but the main 2 8s that I had, I think I have a total of like 30. So I had some other drives laying around. So technically, I could probably have a little more to go, but I have hit that.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
Since January. I've been super, and so we've been trying out different ways of doing it, and I went solo for a while. Like in the last 2 weeks, I've hit 3 blocks, and I'm solo, so I get the entire block reward for those. Mainly because Jim and I have done the math. If you are a smaller guy like me, I don't make enough in the pools to make it worth it for the hit I take on sharing the block. So, but yeah, I am. If you don't count the drives I threw in that I already had, which is still cheating, because those we should count the cost of those if I had to buy everything new. But I'm back to profitable.
And you said, and it's because you're not doing it off of the blocks you're getting from the mining.
No, he's mining solo. So when they hit the block, he gets the whole block.
I get the whole one. It was 1,100. Now it's down to 996. I get that full reward to me. Instead of sharing it.
Yeah. But it's a big risk to go solo, especially at that. You don't know. Like you may go weeks without hitting.
There's about 3.5 weeks where I didn't hit anything. I was having all these errors. But in the last 2 weeks, I've made about 3,000 burst because I'm solo and I get the entire block reward.
But Dwayne, he's had very low hardware equipment costs, right? And so, in a situation like me where, I'm $1,500 into drives, right? And that's a choice I made. It was very calculated. It was money. It was one of those things I wanted to do. Not very often do you get to say you built 115 terabyte.
True.
You just, it was
and you have all that resellability, right? We've talked about this. Like you have the ability to sell those off just the same way I sold off my graphics cards.
Right. For them. They'll sell for $100, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll recoup, that $1,500 pretty easy. And if I want to do it that way, I mean, there's some other things out there. Now, but today that investment, I maybe made $300 on burst to this point.
So we had a couple of questions I want to pause to get. There's one is, does an i3 have more level 3 cache than a Celeron? I believe so. And my understanding is that it's the on CPU store, like RAM or memory, that is and cache that is actually the main difference between the Celeron and the i3. But it's not like i3 is not a high-end processor by any means. It's definitely a value processor. So it's only like about $30 more to get an i3 over the Celeron I was using. So and I have the Core i3 that I have that I'm running. It is the i3 7100, which is a 3 megabyte cache on it. Looks like this one here.
Which, like you said, is great for if you're mining on the GPUs, you can still use that CPU to do burst, which, like, I agree with you. I don't think Celeron, I don't think it would work very well. Jim was trying it on a few of his, those are AMD
real low processor, low power.
It wasn't getting through fast enough.
It was maximum.
But the thing is I don't know that I would ever, like, one of the things here is saying like my drives are free, but my computer is not. You really can take a low-end computer and do this. I would tell you, not that you need, I think we're talking about the processing power, but if you have an old i3, I mean, I think you could pull this off pretty easily with a few drives. I don't think you're going to hit a lot of compute power for a while. So I would tell you, if you've got free drives, then I would be firing up myself a rig and then getting enough to pay for a CPU upgrade. But again, I don't really see much impact on an i3 at all for 2 8 terabyte drives that I've got in it. and I'm hitting about every 4 days. I'll hit about 30 to 38 coins, something like that. I could pull it up and see exactly, but the coins are only worth a few cents a piece. But to Jim's point, I think mainly what you're looking at is you're kind of hedging the bet on what's going to happen.
No, totally. Yeah, no, we saw burst at 10 cents back in December.
And especially because like Jim said too, we're pretty much almost done with I say almost done. We've got a few months left of the block reward for burst still being around. It's dropping so fast that block reward is going to be zero probably by the end of summer.
I think, beyond. Do you think that fast? Have you looked at the calculator? I was thinking more like the end of the year.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so.
I knew it was sometime this year.
Once it starts to drop below 500, it's going to get pretty sketchy. Right. Although most of the miners will drop out at that point, and there may be some more opportunities to pick up easily. Right. I mean, if you can pick up a bunch more blocks a day, well, 500 then is pretty cool. Lopto was asking, what can you make? So a 10 terabyte setup is about $8 a month right now, right? So you kind of start thinking, all right, well, can you make a penny? You can absolutely make 8,000 pennies. No, 800 pennies. You can make 800 pennies in this thing, right?
So what happens when, I didn't know. What happens when the block award goes away?
The chain is done. The blockchain is done at that point.
So miners get rewarded on transaction fees and they don't get a reward for the block.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be fine. That's fine. So if you'll still be making money, you just won't make the block rewards. You won't be able to do what?
I need to do a little research on Burst to see exactly how they're going to handle that moment. Have you read the white paper, Mike, to see what the end of the blockchain means? Yeah, it would be interesting to know. Because
sorry, I did read the one on Burst, but it didn't address
the end of the blockchain.
No.
Yeah, because the plan in most blockchains is you have supernodes. And that's those supernodes, which are you have to own so much to get into, right? Those pay rewards, right? That's how they keep, because once the blockchain is done being mined, you have to give some incentive for miners to stay around, right?
Correct.
So because you think they're around today to secure the blockchain, but because they're going to get coin. Well, when the coin runs out, you don't want the blockchain to you don't want everybody to just leave because you have no blockchain at that point. So the supernode, or this node concept, where you have these massive, for those who have massive amounts of coin, they can then create these spaces where, they get dividends based on the transaction fees that happen on the blockchain. That's the reward, right? That's the value in staying around. So Mike, but I have not heard, although I haven't been reading, I've not heard much from the Burst community about what that day is going to look like.
Well, I haven't either. And what worries me about that is that if you look at the amount of transactions per block on Burst, they are so small. Yeah. I mean, we're talking like 15, 10, 5. Like,
well, there's no product. There's no product yet.
Exactly. So there's not enough transaction fee there to keep that sustainable. So that is a little bit of a concern for me. So
well,
see how it's a concern only because I don't know how they're going to handle it. Right. Just like you said, we haven't done the research.
Right. Who's going to get behind it, or who's going to use it, or are they going to find a viable use case for it? Or, in the meantime though, like, hey, there's a shot. Like for me, there's a nice payoff at 10 cents. That's not that far away. If you kind of think, well, okay, that's doable. 50 cents would be awesome. Like that's a sell point for me, to be honest with you. Not all of it, but I'm going to sell a chunk. If it hits 50 cents, I'm going to start moving some Burst, because I think,
Yep. And if you want to if you guys are out there and you want to do a little bit more research into how this is all going to function going forward with a lot of the other altcoins, just look up the difference between proof of stake and proof of work. You think of proof of work as the old traditional blockchain, and then proof of stake is where they're going to what Jim said, right? Where your stake, the amount of coin you have, you can get into these essentially like a pool of miners. You can become a miner for your stake. The more coin you have, the better. And the disincentive for a miner to mess with the blockchain is that they could lose all of that coin if they mess with the chain, right? So like you put this up and you say, hey, this is my stake. Great. Okay, so you might get some more of the transaction fee or whatever the pool is, because there's no block rewards and proof of in proof of stake. It's all transaction fee based, and that is the disincentive, because we always need that disincentive, right? So for the miners, and that's what it is, because they could lose that stake that they ante up.
Right.
But it's a very interesting concept because it takes down a lot of the power consumption, and it kind of helps a lot of the issues we have now as all these chains start to move to proof of stake.
Well, and there's been a lot of talk lately of the mergers lately. There have been, when we saw Z Classic and we saw Bitcoin merge, and I think we're probably going to see more of that. Certainly there's some 2,000 altcoins now. No way you can necessarily support that many. I don't know. Maybe you could. Maybe you can. Maybe I don't think so. So you're gonna probably see some start to merge together. It'll be super interesting. I've said that about 1 million times, right?
Yeah, we'll see what happens on this. To me, Burst is an experiment.
Totally. They all are. To be honest.
Honestly, it's just sitting over here doing nothing. I was like, I just have this compute power. So, and then I'm like, how much? Okay, fine. I'll buy a few hard drives and throw at it. Yeah. And I decided to go up to 4. Right. And
you can use them again. That's what's great about this is
so you're gonna have 32 terabytes by the end.
Yes.
That's a perfect sweet spot. What I found.
Yep.
I have, that's about around where I might have a little more than 32, and it's a great sweet spot.
Now I do have to put a USB hub onto the motherboard because I only had 4 USB ports on the back of it.
Jim's your man on that topic. He's got those things down.
I have learned a ton about that.
Oh, well, we'll have to chat about that one because I do already have a USB, 10-port USB hub.
It's 3.0.
Yep.
Yeah, then you're fine. You could just use that.
Okay.
For 4 drives, you'll be fine. When you start getting 9 and 10 drives on a hub, it goes sideways. I mean, the USB spec says it'll support 129 USB devices on any USB hub or any USB port. While that's theoretically true, when you actually throw throughput in on those things, not necessarily true. And it took for me on, like, if I was jamming, I was doing 10 on a single hub. It was taking minutes for the USB to find those drives. So if they got disconnected for some reason, it was taking minutes for them to find it just to show up on the network. Now, once they're on the network, it's fine. Like this PC I have on going in here, it's got 14 USB drives hanging off of it, right? When I have to reboot it, like I'm gonna definitely 1804 that's coming out here. It's not going on this box, not in a million years. I'm gonna stall that update just as long as I possibly can because I don't want to reboot this thing again for a while.
Oh yes,
the security updates will make it reboot, but it takes a while. It's not a clean to reboot it. I've got to do some magic, pull some things and make it do some things, right?
Just do the update. Do the update when you do that
update's bad, dude. Do not take 1804. It's bad. It is bad.
You say this as I've rolled 1804 and everything.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So, well, I was actually having a problem with the update before it. So it actually has fixed a lot of problems.
Better for you. Yeah, and that's certainly possible.
So let's shift the conversation, Mr. Jim, to outside of Burst Coin. What am I doing? Yeah. And that is, I remember last time we were talking, I was doing Awesome Miner. And I was doing that against Mining Pool Hub, and I was doing it against NiceHash and letting it move back and forth. So just this week, either this week or last week, I got this stretch where I got to stay home for a change. And I started kind of keeping an eye on it because you know how you kind of look over and see, is it stopped? Is there anything wrong? And, and I will say Awesome Miner has been solid as a freaking rock. It is almost always, unless there's some sort of update, it just does not go down. Now, the thing that I ran into, though, is a problem where I had to start watching because I came in the other night and I looked and it said that my computer in my other room was making 1,400 a day.
Wouldn't that be great?
And I was sitting there, I looked at it and I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, I
Yeah.
need to buy more video cards now. And I was like, what is going on? And so it was like NIST 5 was the algorithm that it was on, and or something like that. And I looked at it, and then I walked back in there after I went and I checked all of my computers. I was like, one of them's like saying 700, the other one's 400, the other one's 1400. I'm like, I am killing it. I am making so much money. And then I'm like, I'm just printing it, you know. And I come back and I walk back into the room just to look at it one more time. I was about to call a friend of mine and be like, "Are you seeing this?" And all of a sudden I look at it and it drops to 12 cent.
Yeah.
And so there are these people who are trying to get you to mine their coin that are jacking up the current rate that they're paying till they get enough miners, and the miner switching software switches every like 30 minutes. And so they get all these miners up on it, promising this rate. And then as soon as they get the number they want, they drop it through the floor.
Right.
And that is ridiculous. So that started irritating me. And on Awesome Miner, it was doing it a lot. And so I had to start paying attention to all the different algorithms, because the more algorithms you can do, the more likely this is going to happen. And then I also noticed that the way Awesome Miner with Mining Pool Hub works is I was telling it to convert everything over to Ethereum. And I had a fairly consistent payout. It does what it says it's going to do. But the problem is that you started losing money in the transfer fees between one coin to the next coin, and the rates have gotten a little stupid. And so I just was like, okay, this is irritating me. So I fired up, I fired back up NiceHash, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go back to making this simple, just getting paid in Bitcoin, and I don't have to worry about all this crap. And people who don't know, NiceHash, you mine whatever they want, whatever they mine, but they pay you in Bitcoin. So there's no transfer fee. They're just paying you for the use of, in Bitcoin, they're paying you for the use of your compute, which they turn around and resell on a marketplace. And whatever the best rate is what where they need people for the best rate is where they move their miner community around. So in their world, it's not common to see them lowball you and move you around on that. That would make people want to leave NiceHash. So I went to it, and I actually have seen a shift in the market. You guys were talking about how much the video cards were, and then you had the whole Bitcoin crash down to like 5-6 grand, right? And when video cards were going at 2 and 3 times the cost, I would say that it wasn't a time to mine Bitcoin. It was like we were debating that last time.
And when you say mine Bitcoin, just to clarify, you're talking about mining altcoins and getting paid out in Bitcoin.
Yeah, using NiceHash to get paid off of.
But you're mining other
GPU
coins
mining.
and getting paid out in Bitcoin.
Yeah, right. And keep in mind that when you're doing the altcoin way of doing this, what you run into in that space is that you run into that you have to do it on GPU. You can't really do it on ASIC, because you can only mine one algorithm on an ASIC. So having a GPU on NiceHash is the right way to do it. You'll maximize your profit. And now, don't get me wrong, ASIC will produce more, but you are tied to that currency and whatever they're paying for that currency, and that's all you get. So, once I moved over, I started monitoring this to see, did I make more money on Awesome Miner now, or did I make more money on NiceHash? Back in the day when graphic cards were stupid expensive and all these the main currencies were hitting rock bottoms, you were probably better in Awesome Miner. But now what's going on is the exchange rate on altcoins not so good, going over to Bitcoin or going to Ethereum, because those coins are kind of stabilizing at this point. From a cost per day, you're actually seeing green days and red days, and it's just kind of floating around that 9,000 mark for Bitcoin. So I started monitoring it over the last couple of weeks, and what I was able to do is now I can produce 360 a month consistently off of 12 cards. At that rate, and you start looking at what video cards are at now, you're seeing video cards back down to the rates of like normal pricing. And so you can get a decent priced video. Like you can get a 1060. If you watch it, it's pretty easy to get one for the low 200s. And so if you're in that space again, and you're doing with me with 12 cards at $12 a day, you say $1 a day for the card. And I'm saying this is on average. There are days I make more. There's days I make a little less. But just to give you an idea, it's actually gotten to a point where you can be profitable again. And even buying hardware, there is a return on investment time that's reasonable for the card. And so in the end, I would say that at this point, I'm going to hold on NiceHash for a bit. I have to give them their props. They're paying out well. The other thing is they implemented a concept where they went together with Coinbase. So you can transfer out of NiceHash if it's 0.001 Bitcoin or more. You can transfer out. And then the other thing is they don't charge you a transfer fee to get it into Coinbase. And you can do it as much as you want and as quick as you want. And it's instant. It's not like when you normally send it to a different wallet. It is an instant transfer. You can literally go over to Coinbase, hit refresh, and you will also get an email immediately saying that it's in there between these two. So they've done some sort of partnership between the two. And by doing that, it takes all of these transfer fees away. And because of that, it ends up making more money. Even if the pay rate, even if you're making $7 an hour on one card, on one service, and you're making $6 an hour on this service, because you don't have the transfer fees on the backside of it when you're doing the coin transfers and the transfer back into your wallet, that it actually is cheaper long term. I mean, you make more profit that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just so crazy, Jim, right? Like when he's telling the story, I'm thinking back to when I stopped graphics card mining. Like that was back in the heyday. I was making $10 to $12 a day on 4 cards. And those were not the highest end cards either. It's just, it is the difference in how things are going. And hopefully, the way altcoins are going, we're looking back towards that, to bringing up the mining again. But it's just crazy how much of a swing we've seen with GPU mining on altcoins just in the past few months.
Yeah. In week one, to give you guys an idea, in week one, I had $480 a month rate. And then it dropped a little bit.
With how many cards?
12.
And when was week one?
That was week before last.
Okay.
And now I haven't checked it again, like this at the end of this week. I'll check it again, which is, I guess, tomorrow. I'll look it up and I'll see what is kind of calculated average, because right now I make 0.01 or more a day Bitcoin.
And what cards are you using?
I have mainly I use 3 gigabyte as far as DDR RAM, 3 gigabyte on the cards, and I have 1060 GTXs across the board. Except for one card, which I have a 1070 with a lot more RAM on it.
Have you run into the memory issue on those 3 gig cards with Ethereum?
Nope.
Because now the load is above the 3 gig threshold.
I haven't run into it because most of the time I'm not mining Ethereum.
Well, right. You probably can't mine Ethereum. It probably knows you can't mine Ethereum.
Yeah, because it would take that into account. But in NiceHash, 9 times out of 10, you would never really typically mine Ethereum. I mean, you're probably mining an Ethereum thread or something like it's the same algorithm, but it's a different coin. But it doesn't seem to be causing any issue for me. And then keep in mind, I do have that MSI 1070 that's running, and I can definitely tell you it's not worth the money to go to a 1070. So that's kind of one of the things that I would recommend that you you think about your cards pretty well. I would not spend over 270 on a card, period. And if I was giving you a buy point, I would try to get for about 229. 219, 229 is a buy point on a graphics card right now of a 1060 GTX, because you can get your money back out of that card within a year. And again, I mean, keep in mind, this is if you pay attention to Bitcoin, if you go back and look at the history, and everybody can go do this, it goes up, it doubles in price, and then it comes halfway back down. Almost every single time, it is doubled in price and then crashed halfway down. The problem was when it hit 20 grand, it went up from like it went for like skyrocketed from like 5 grand to 20 grand in this period. And then it dropped back down to like holding around 10. And it's kind of been there. I mean, sure, it dropped down in the 6s and all, but that's kind of the low and then the high. But if you look at where it lands and it tends to stabilize about halfway up of its high. It stabilizes. So right now we're at about 9. Its high was about 20. And so you're right about half. So the question is, once it tends to hold for a long enough period that people aren't afraid of it anymore, then what happens is people will start going into it because they see some good days on it, and then it ends up going up again, and you start seeing, and then you get all these people jumping on it again, and it'll go up again, and then it'll come back down. And it's just because there's some people that put money into it and they can't take a loss of losing so much of their money, so they're staking it and holding it to a certain point. And so I think this is where most of the people sold when it crashed. It sold at about 9 is when we had a majority of people. There's definitely others, but anyway, so that's kind of the thought process I've got going on with it from Bitcoin. Would I get into it right now? Hey, if you're a nerd and you like to have fun, it's fun.
No, I totally would. I think now's the time. It's the time to jump back in. I think we bottomed.
Yeah,
I think we bottomed and come up a little bit, and that doesn't mean it's always going to stay that way. It doesn't mean it's that we couldn't be at another peak, but I just, on everything I've seen, like if you're just going to mess around with this, now would be a good time to jump back in. It's a good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a lot of risk in you losing your butt. I mean, you still have the asset. Yeah. So if you took what I've paid, and I liquidated all of my cards today, and I liquidated like all the hardware, if I just went on eBay and sold it for what I could get on eBay, and you take into consideration what I've made, you have to remember, Jim, I started mining Bitcoin at 2000. Mm-hmm. So my Bitcoin stuff is looking pretty good, boys and girls. Right. It's all about you having the fortitude to deal with the huge swings and not thinking you're going to make millions overnight like people were thinking back when it hit 20 grand. People were just dumping cash in. And if you recall, Jim, I told you I didn't want to put money in. I just wanted to put money into the hardware because it'll just keep making it. Yeah. And I'm still making the same amount of Bitcoin. It's just, what is it worth? So if it hits 20 again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Except Uyghur put money in and he did better than everybody else at this point. Mike got pretty lucky, man.
I did a combo, money and then hardware again, and then I got out. I got lucky. I got out of Bitcoin at the right time, and then I sold my hardware at the right time. You can't get that same money I sold my cards for right now. Not even close.
No. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the cards that I'm using, the GTX 1060s, the Asus cards, I just looked on Amazon. They're like $250 new, still more than they were when I bought them. I bought them for $215, which I thought was like ridiculous at the time. They had been selling for $179. You could have gotten them for $150, 6 months before that. So it's
I wonder what mine are selling for.
I am so Dwayne, I run both NiceHash and Awesome Miner. And I have been, you're right, I hadn't quite looked at the fees recently, and holy crap, they have gone up quite a bit on some of these coins. I mean, they were like, anyways. And then, although some of that's because the amounts are so small and they're based on percentages. But that being said, so as soon as you were talking about that, I thought, oh, I'm going to look at Nice Hash. So I bring it up. It's running. So typically I run at 2 or 250 per machine. So those are 2 cards. So each card running about $1.20, between $1 and $1.25 each, right? So I bring it up and it's running at $4.50. And I'm like, holy crap, like it's off to the races. Well, then it goes back down to $1.90, and right now it's sitting at $2.85. So it's fluxing all over the place, right? As they, as they're working on it. But I think I might follow. I think I might shut off Awesome Miner, let all that balance clear, let it get all sold. I've got a bunch of coin in there. And I'm my goal is to build up my Litecoin holding, because Litecoin has taken just a battering of those, of the 5 big ones. It's taken the biggest hit on all this. So trying to buy low at that point and see if I can get in and get some more Litecoin. Mike, a couple weeks ago when we had Edward on, remember I said that variation between Ethereum and Bitcoin had been a solid 10% relationship. In other words, Ethereum was always 10% of Bitcoin, and it had dropped to a 5%. And I asked Edward, would now be a good time to take Bitcoin and buy Ethereum? Like, it's on a percentage basis, you're going to get more out of it, knowing that I think Ethereum is elastic in the sense it's going to come back to a 10% space, a 10%, and that would mean you would gain more against Bitcoin. So I put my money where my mouth was. I pushed all my Bitcoin into Ethereum, and it was at 0.55, and today it's at 0.8, and it's making its way back.
Sell. No. So
with as little as I have, we're talking a couple $100.
So by the way, my favorite card that I would recommend is there is an EVGA GeForce GTX 1060 3 GB, and it's super clocked. Okay,
Dave has that one,
and this card takes the smaller what is it, the 3-pin versus the 6-pin or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? The power plug. It uses the smaller of the two.
Uses 1 versus 2.
Yes, exactly. It uses 1, but now there are other cards that use 1, but it uses an 8-pin versus a 6-pin.
Oh, right.
Okay, so that means you can generally have a power supply power 2 of these off of a single thing that's made for a dual pin GPU. So in other words, you have a cable that comes out that's meant from your modular power supply to power one big like 1080. You can power 2 of these off of it because it's 2 6-pins, because it's an 8-pin plus 6-pin. You follow me?
Yep.
And so this card makes a good bit more than the single fan version, which it's based off of because of the super clocking. I will tell you, this is my favorite card, and right now it's same day delivery for $259.99, and that is pretty darn close to what that card was going for back when Jim was paying $215. And I love it because it's quiet, it's efficient, it's pretty darn good. So I would tell you that card I would give you a buy rating on. I would not give you a buy rating on the single fan because the single fan version of it is at $249. That one needs to hit $229 before I'd give you a buy rating on it.
Or go AMD RX 480 and call yourself a day and get a few of those.
But don't combine them in the same.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So you need to make a decision. What is your machine going to be?
You can combine them as long as you're okay using the old version of Nice Hash or whatever they called it, their classic version, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on AMD. Dwayne, I'm going to let you go. We've had you long enough. I actually need to stop the live stream and chat with Mike a little bit, and I need to let him go as well because it's getting late. So, yep. Dwayne, thanks for jumping in here and being a part of what we do tonight. If you're listening on the live stream, guys, thanks for coming out tonight, and thanks for the conversation as well. We'll see you back here next week. Micah Librant is here next week, brand new podcaster. Actually, not really. She's been podcasting with me for 3 years over at Gallup. and it's 2-0 now in the hockey game. She's been podcasting with me for 3 years, Mike. So she's a veteran. We're gonna talk about the coffee mug that keeps your coffee hot and an air fryer. She's bringing on an air fryer. Have you ever done an air fryer?
I've never even heard of it. No.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously, I need to know. Does that thing work?
Well, you have to listen next week. Mike is going to come on. She says it's changed her life.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you want to?
Can we do it now?
No.
Yes. Call down, get her on.
Gotta
Call her
wait for
now.
next week. We got a girl geek coming in here next week. So we'll see you guys back here next week. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.
Awesome.
And